Bones and All is the newest film from director Luca Guadagnino and stars Taylor Russell, Mark Rylance, and Timothée Chalamet. This film follows Taylor Russell's character Marion, a cannibalistic teenager who has been left to fend for herself as she decides to travel across the country to find the mother that abandoned her when she was born. Along the way, Marion meets Lee, played by Timothée Chalamet, another cannibalistic teenager, and he decides to help her on her journey. And along the way, they start to fall in love, and what ensues is a very strange and pretty messed up romance film. This movie is based off the book by Camille DeAngelis. I have not read that book, so I can't speak on how good of an adaptation this film is from the source material, but what I can say is that this isn't Luca Guadagnino's first adaptation film. He did Call Me By Your Name and the Suspiria remake. Both of those I really, really love, and those are fantastic adaptations or reimaginings. And as far as I can tell, he did a great job bringing this story to life as well. So I think Luca might be the king of film adaptations. The way he uses the camera in this film specifically to visually tell you the story is not only creative and impressive, but surprisingly profound. There's times when we cut to the POV of a character so that we can focus on what they're focusing on while someone else is talking in the scene. And it happens very quick and it's very subtle, but it happens a few times throughout the movie. And I think it was just a genius way to kind of push the story and push the motivation of certain characters. I will say there's nothing in the cinematography or editing that I would say is jaw-dropping, but I mean, it is better than most films. I'd say that this is on par with a lot of Guadagnino's other films in terms of cinematography. This movie was shot on film, so it does have a lot of really nice colors, and the graininess of the film really adds to the immersive experience of being in the time period that this movie is set in. I think we need to talk about Taylor Russell for a second because she crushes it in this film. She really carries this movie front to back. Her performance alone, I think, is worth the price of a ticket. I know her from the A24 film Waves, which she also did amazing in that film. Right now, I think she's an actress to watch. I think she's a super underrated actress for our time, and I think what Taylor Russell brings to the character in this film is really great, really outstanding stuff that I really hope we get to see her do more of. Another standout performance is Mark Rylance. His character is what brings the creepy, spooky aspect to the film. His character is just so unpredictable and weird and slimy and creepy. Makes me super uncomfortable. There's a scene in the first act where his character and Taylor Russell's character meet, and they just have a discussion in the kitchen while he's prepping a chicken to be cooked. He's cutting it up, and it's really gross sounding.
You never had anyone take an interest in you?
But the dialogue between them is very interesting, and it kept me glued to the screen just because of how both of these actors were bringing their all just to this small scene of them talking in a kitchen. I was captivated the whole time, and it's a very simple scene, which I think says a lot to their performances. And it honestly was probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. Timothée Chalamet does a good job, but I wouldn't say it's anything new for him. We've kind of seen him in this role before of the skinny, cigarette-smoking teenage love interest that quotes poetry. It's like if his character from Lady Bird or Beautiful Boy liked to eat people. But with that being said, I do think him and Taylor Russell have really good chemistry in the film. Never once does their relationship feel forced or not natural. It feels like a real lived-in relationship. And that's not an easy thing to do. Now, you might be wondering, Cody, when are you going to talk about the cannibalism? Right now. There is surprisingly way less on-screen cannibalism than I was expecting. Is that a good thing? Depends on when you ask me. I just kept hearing things about how gross the movie was, and people were getting up and leaving because they were getting sick. I mean, there was 2 or 3 scenes where I, was wincing a little bit, got a good wince out of me, especially that first time that you see someone get a bite taken out of them. But honestly, the grossest aspect of it isn't the blood or the gory parts that you do see, it's the sound design. Whoever the Foley artist was for this deserves all the recognition, because you hear every squish and squelch of teeth digging into muscle. You hear every deep inhale of breath from people with mouthfuls of flesh. It's one of those movies that if you're a person that hates the sound of people chewing or really any ASMR type sounds, you may want to avoid this one or go see it with earplugs. I think another thing that I admire about this film is its ability to balance 3 genres basically seamlessly. It's a romance film, it's a road trip movie, and it's a horror film all in one, and it never becomes too overwhelming. They're all perfectly balanced, and it never becomes more than what it is, which is a coming-of-age romance film about 2 cannibals. I do have a few complaints though. I think the second act drags quite a bit. There's some pacing issues there. I found myself like losing interest and a lot of that stuff in the middle. I do think the first and third act were really great. Just right there in the middle, it dragged and I could feel the runtime. I really don't think this movie should have been more than 2 hours. It is, but don't think it should have been. Another thing is I kind of wish they went a little more in depth with the idea of there being more of them being cannibals. They touch on it like a little bit here and there throughout the movie. There's parts where they meet other cannibals and some throwaway dialogue. They never really dive like into the background of it all and like why they're all cannibals, how it all started. Is it something that's curable? Just a lot of random questions about the cannibalism that they don't really touch on, that's just kind of there. The cannibalism aspect just is. And sometimes that was hard to buy because sometimes there's scenes that I feel like would have had more weight and more depth to them if we knew the context of like why they were the way they were, I guess. I'm sure the book probably touches on that a lot more. Again, I haven't read it, so I can't really fault it for that, but I do think there could have been a little bit more depth to some of these characters if we knew more about the cannibalism. I don't know if it's that I needed more depth on the cannibalism. I think I just kind of wanted more depth on the cannibalism, which I didn't think I would ever say that in my life. Overall, I think Bones and All is a good time. I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. That number could change on a revisit. I don't know if it would go up or down. I feel like there's a lot of the film that I still need to take some time to like chew on. No pun intended. But if you've seen this movie, let me know what you thought about it. If you haven't, I say check it out. Let me know what you thought. My name's Cody Metcalf. Thank you for watching.